Hello and welcome to the Cowboy Chronicles, the Oklahoman's Oklahoma State football podcast. I am your host, Scott Wright, joined this week by Joe Masato. Joe, thank you very much for standing in.
Always good to be here with you, Scott.
Good deal. We're here in Boone Pickens Stadium, actually just outside some of the suites, and going to go see if they left any beverages in there. I don't see anything yet, but we're going to check.
Pretty empty.
Yeah, it does. But had a chance to bring you a quick podcast this week. We do still hope to get back into Stone Cloud at some point this season. It's just a matter of timing. Nothing on their end. It's all on our end. We're going to be back in there at some point this year. But Joe, let's jump right into it. Well, first, actually, I want to get to, we did have some score predictions. The two winners actually tied. We'll save that up, and whenever we get back in Stone Cloud, I'll drink a beer for you guys. But thank you, and if you want to jump in with your score predictions for the OSU-Arkansas game, do that on YouTube in the comments, and we'll keep track of all of our winners as the season goes along. Now, Joe, you got to be here on Saturday for OSU against South Dakota State. A lot of us around the office were talking. We kind of thought that 9.5-point spread, which ended up ballooning to over 13 by game time, was maybe something that South Dakota State could stay within. Oklahoma State wins 44-20. Your thoughts on the game in general?
Yeah, I mean, turns out that late money that went on the Cowboys was right, because they covered that, and I thought this was going to be a much tougher game, and that wasn't because of a disbelief in OSU. It was more so, they're playing a team that has won back-to-back FCS national championships, 29-game winning streak, and I thought it was just awfully impressive what OSU did on Saturday to just look like the more complete team on both sides of the ball, more physical, more athletic. Their South Dakota State's coach, Jimmy Rogers, said that's one of the best teams he's ever seen, ever faced at South Dakota State. He was there as an assistant before taking the head coaching job. And very kind of business-like approach for the Cowboys on Saturday.
Yeah, it's really interesting coming in. Obviously, they've got Ollie Gordon, they've got everything that he did last year. And when you come away talking about, the run game production, averaging 3.3 yards per carry, is one of the more disappointing things. That's really kind of a good sign for Oklahoma State, I thought. Yeah,
I mean, that was kind of one of Mike Gundy's main points after the game, is that the run game has to be better for the Cowboys. At the same time, I think the quarterback play was better than expected. I wrote about Alan Bowman after the game, and, we think of him as how much is a 24-year-old college quarterback going to improve, or like what is there that we haven't already seen? But you mentioned this to me, the high school system he ran, very similar to what he ran at Texas Tech. He goes to Michigan where he doesn't play much. And now he's in the second year of Casey Dunn and Mike Gundy's system, and he just seems way more comfortable. I know it's only a one-game sample size. I know South Dakota State is an FCS team. But I thought Alan Bowman played one of his best games as a Cowboy, best completion percentage he's ever had, and didn't turn the ball over through 3 touchdowns, so a really good game for him.
Yeah, and really that completion percentage kind of dipped late in the game when he had really the game was kind of in hand. And
I think 5 of his last 6 passes were incompletion, so it was a lot better than that.
And 12 or 13 in a row that he hit. That streak ended with a drop, so not really on him. So all very interesting to see the way that he played. If he can continue to play that way, use those receivers to open things up for Ollie Gordon, this is going to be a really scary offense, I think, Joe.
Yeah, and that big pass he had to Rashad Owens, he gave his bow and arrow celebration at midfield. So I think that's what it's going to be like. We talked after the game that Alan Bowman doesn't have to be some all-conference quarterback. He just has to be serviceable or slightly better than that, which he was on Saturday, and that really could open up this offense because the running game's going to get going. The offensive line is going to create more room. I think that big playability every now and then, pound, and then surprise with a long pass like we saw from Bowman to Owens. That's going to be one of the keys to this offense.
Yeah, absolutely. You looking over at the defensive side of the ball, obviously a lot of talk about the different changes that Brian Nardo made, adjusting his scheme at times, really, particularly with how much South Dakota State used the 2 tight end system. This almost looked more like a Jim Knowles defense from 2021 because they were in more of a 4-2-5 a lot of times. But still some changes that look like they're going to pay off. Obviously, they still had some big play issues. They gave up half of their yards basically on 5 of the 65 snaps from the game. So, South Dakota State had the one drive where they go 20, 35, 20, and they're in the end zone. Those type of moments, had the one really long pass play, one long rush. But overall, it felt like the defense was moving in the right direction. I think that is the most important thing right now, that you're seeing the development. Your thoughts on the defense, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, too many big plays, and I know Mike Gundy mentioned that afterwards. You can't play this game where, if you take those big plays out, then here's how many yards they would have had.
Yeah.
But at the same time, aside from those big plays, I thought OSU played solid defense. I mean, you wrote about it after the game as far as how many guys they were rotating in, kind of the depth now that they have on that side of the ball, the different looks they were giving. So I don't know about you. I thought they defended South Dakota State pretty well.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like, some minor fixable things that led to some of those big plays. And obviously you need to not be making the same mistakes over and over again. You need to be able to adjust and not have other issues that come up at different times. But still, overall, really, I thought a good start, because you did what you needed to do. You had a comfortable victory, and still plenty to work on this week in getting ready for Arkansas. And let's go ahead and turn our attention there. In doing some research, this defensive line is really pretty impressive. They've got a potential first-round pick on the edge, a big dude, 6'7", 280, and can do a lot of different things. So obviously running the ball becomes important, but that's going to be important every week, because everybody's going to be trying to stop Ollie Gordon. But Mike Gundy talked about it. You're going to see more size, more physicality. Maybe they're not technically the best the way South Dakota State was, because they do things right. But this Arkansas defense, I think, has a chance to cause some issues up front for Oklahoma State potentially.
Yeah, I know this might sound crazy. I don't know how much better of a team Arkansas is than South Dakota State, but they definitely have better athletes.
Right.
Just SEC athletes, and that's what Mike Gundy mentioned. I mean, you're just going to face a lot more size and speed than you did against South Dakota State, even if it's not as refined. But Arkansas, I watched a little bit of that Pine Bluff game, and it was just no contest. You can't take much from that. But this is a team that last year, they only won one SEC game, went 4-8 overall. Gundy did mention today all the close games that they played in, which, LSU's close games last year went OSU's way. Arkansas's close games kind of went the other way. So not one of the bottom tier SEC teams this season, but at the same time, not an easy game, and one of those games that, would look really good on the resume at years in probably.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of tiled this non-conference season up for Oklahoma State. You play a team that is very technically sound and knows how to win in South Dakota State. Now you play SEC level talent and physicality and speed and all of those things in Arkansas, but a team that you should talent-wise be able to outmatch. And then you get a road game at Tulsa. It's a little bit of everything that Oklahoma State gets in preparation for Big 12 play to really have them, I think, in position. And I think this is an important one to make sure they take that step forward in the physicality aspect going into this Arkansas game.
Yeah, different test for sure. And I do like how the non-conference schedule sets up going into Big 12 play. And I'm just looking forward to this game. I mean, I'm not old enough to remember the Arkansas-OSU rivalry back in the day, and when they would play every year. It's been, since 1980 that these two teams have played. So now that they're getting this series back going with a couple of home-and-home scheduled over the next several years, just the proximity of the two schools, kind of the same recruiting grounds. There's a lot of people in the east side of the state who are Arkansas fans and vice versa. So really looking forward to this one.
Just to be clear, I was not yet 2 years old the last time these two teams played. I'm also not old enough to remember.
I wasn't implying
very clear.
Now I know you know these games. I mean,
exactly.
Mike Gundy was talking how he doesn't have a lot of memories from them even.
Yeah, exactly. Because he was graduated high school in '86. So not exactly paying attention to a lot of stuff in 1980 either. So. All right. Well, with that, I think it's time for us to move ahead. Actually, I do want to talk about Leslie O'Neal before we get into the Stone Cloud six-pack because he is going into the Ring of Honor this week. Mike Gundy talked a little bit about him. sort of compared him to the defensive version of Barry Sanders and Thurman Thomas. He's the first defensive player. It's a pretty cool deal to finally see somebody other than a running back going up on the Ring of Honor here at Bowman Stadium.
We talked about that Saturday. It's stacked with offensive talent, and to see Leslie O'Neal go up there will be pretty cool. So it's kind of neat how year after year they've sort of unveiled one of these new guys for the Ring of Honor.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see where they go next, because I sort of felt like the first 5 were pretty obvious. Now it really widens the field for who they can select. A lot of different ways they can go. We'll see who is on the list for 2025, but it's going to be very interesting. More on Leslie O'Neal during the Stone Cloud Six-Pack, but we start with this week in particular. To open up the Stone Cloud Six-Pack, Joe, over or under 27 carries for Ollie Gordon. Mike Gundy talked during the preseason, wanted to keep him at 20. They probably could have shut him down about 22 or 23 and still got him 100 yards and 3 touchdowns on Saturday. They ran him a few more times there late, which I was a little surprised by. Ended up with 27 carries plus 4 receptions. Over or under the 27 number this week? We're just talking carries, so you don't have to mix in any receptions that he might get.
Well, I think you've got a good future in Vegas, Scott, because it's a very well-placed over-under here. Right. I'm going to go over. I just think it's OSU's bread and butter. And I think they, especially after Mike Gundy said after the South Dakota State game that run game needs to be better, I think that's going to be a point of emphasis this week. And I think it might be strength on strength with OSU's O-line against Arkansas's D-line. But Ollie Gordon didn't really bust a long one last weekend. Think he will against the Razorbacks. I think, the Cowboys are going to try to control time of possession, eat up some clock, run the ball with Ollie Gordon, so I'll go over.
I'm going over as well. I think they'll probably try to get him in the passing game as well, but I still think he's going to end up getting close to that 30 number, because I think they're going to have to pound him a little bit and eventually work to the point that he gets open and can bust one of those long ones. And you look at the yards per carry from Saturday, 3.3, like we talked about earlier. You mix in one 50-yard carry, it changes the numbers really quick. So that's something that they really rely on when it comes to yards per carry with Ollie Gordon, because a lot of times they are asking him to run into a loaded box, and it's going to be tough to get more than a couple of yards. So I'm going over as well this week, but could be one where they try to get him outside more, try to throw him a few more passes, maybe keep that number low, but it just feels like it's probably going to go over this week. All right, another over-under. Arkansas, over or under 20 points, which is what South Dakota State scored. Arkansas, of course, scored 70, as you mentioned, against Arkansas Pine Bluff, but not all FCS teams are created equal. If South Dakota State is number one, I don't know exactly how low you got to go to get to Pine Bluff, which I think won 2 or 3 games last year. So
they're probably near the bottom, I would guess.
Yeah, I think so. So is Arkansas going to score more than 20 points or not this week, Joe?
I'm going to take the under there on Arkansas's points. Again, an altogether different test for Arkansas this week, facing this Oklahoma State defense. They've got the transfer quarterback. He's really athletic. He looked good in game one, but again, this is going to be a whole different environment, whole different opponent. And if we're right about Ollie Gordon's carries and OSU really prioritizing the run game, again, those are going to be long possessions, so might not be a ton of opportunities for Arkansas to run up the scoreboard here. So I think this defense is going to look even sharper maybe than they did last week, so I'll go under for Arkansas's points.
I'm going to go over. However, if I set the line at 24, I probably would have gone under. I do think they're going to be in that low 20s range, but I feel like they're going to do enough and have enough talent with Green at quarterback. Seeing some of his highlights, again, it was Arkansas Pine Bluff, but seeing some of the things he did, he's a proven player. He's a solid player and a good athlete. I think they'll be able to make some plays there and get some points on the board. I don't see them getting a big number, however. All right, the last one of this half of the Stone Cloud Six-Pack. I said we'd come back to Leslie O'Neal, and we will with this one right here. His career sack total of 34 sacks remains OSU's all-time sacks lead. Colin Oliver, who got 1 sack over the weekend, now has 23.5 for his career We all sort of now he could still come back for a
Yeah.
super senior year, which would really blow this question out of the water.
Yeah.
We all expect that this is probably the end for Colin Oliver, and he's heading to the NFL. Will Colin Oliver surpass Leslie O'Neal as OSU's leading sack tallier?
I think that's
Sackster?
right.
All right.
Sackster. I'm going to say no. Just that's a lot of sacks,
It
man.
is. It
And,
is.
he would have to have just an incredible season, and he might very well. But I'm going to say that by season's end, Leslie O'Neal is still at the top of that list.
I'm going that direction as well. I think Colin's going to get close. He's going to put himself in that top 3 range. But yeah, now he's done this before. He had 12 as a true freshman back in 2021. But I feel like that was a little bit different. There was a big portion of that season where he was still a little bit of an unknown.
Yeah.
Now everybody knows where he is and will be paying attention to where he lines up every snap. I also think there are going to be times when he's not on the line as frequently as we saw him on Saturday because of the way that South Dakota State was aligning. So I think that pulled him up onto the line of scrimmage a little bit more frequently.
Yeah.
But I do think he's going to be up threatening that double-digit range for sacks this year, and that'll give him a chance to be in the mix there. All right, that wraps up the first half of the Stone Cloud 6-pack. Now, for the final 3, we go to our draft, as you know, Joe.
Yes.
And this week, because we have an 11 a.m. game, which is a very infrequent thing for Oklahoma State in the past, becoming more common this year. They've already got 3 on the schedule before the season even started.
Yeah.
This week, also against Tulsa, and then the Colorado game back at the end of November. But 11 a.m. game, that means there's a good chance that the folks here in Boone Pickens Stadium press box serve us breakfast. Ooh. So our draft today is breakfast foods. And as I always do, I let the guest host or Jacob, whichever it is, go first. So you get the first pick in the breakfast food draft.
I would just like to say that I love a variety of breakfast foods.
Same.
So this
same.
is going to be tough.
This is not easy. No.
So when I if I'm going out for breakfast, I always struggle with the sweet versus savory because I want both. So with my first pick, I'm choosing chicken and waffles because I can have the savory of the fried chicken, and then I can have the sweetness of a waffle. Makes a great pairing. That's my first pick.
That's an excellent pick. Also, I got to say, when I was in Vegas for Big 12 Media Days, I ended up at this breakfast spot that had Nashville chicken and waffles.
Ooh, yeah.
It took it up another notch with the spicy and the sugar of the syrup to really play off each other. Made it a fantastic breakfast. So I was a big fan of that. Love that pick. I'm starting simple with my first pick. I'm going with hash browns.
Okay.
I'm a big potato lover in general. Hash browns are a staple of breakfast for me. In particular, actually, this morning I had Hatch in Oklahoma City, which I'm a big fan of. They've got one here in Stillwater now, which is incredible.
Oh, wow.
But the hash brown tumblers at Hatch, it would be between that and just a basic McDonald's hash brown as far as my favorite ones from somewhere other than just making them at home where you can mix in some other stuff. But
the potato is pretty versatile when it comes
absolutely
to really everything. But you can do the breakfast potatoes that are diced up, chopped up, or whatever. But that's a good pick.
Yeah.
It goes with anything.
It really does. It's fantastic. All right, round 2, back to you, Joe.
Round 2, I am going biscuits and gravy. It's a classic.
Absolutely.
I love it. Have some sausage in that gravy. Fills you right up. Might make you not feel so good later, but I'm going biscuits and gravy.
Nothing wrong with that. My son in particular, huge fan of biscuits and gravy.
Yeah.
It was almost a daily thing for a certain period of his life. That we'd go get some biscuits and gravy and go find something to do. So nothing wrong with that at all. I'm going with another basic staple of my breakfast food plate: scrambled eggs.
Oh yeah.
Huge fan of scrambled eggs. Now you mix in some like fried potatoes of some sort, some breakfast potatoes with the scrambled eggs.
Egg scramble.
It takes it to the next level. But I'm always going to have or always try to have some scrambled eggs on my plate, and if they can get over there close to the potatoes, it's even better. So, all right, with that, your chance to wrap it up here with your round 3 pick.
Round 3 pick. I am. I'm going with French toast. I'm
No,
a big
nothing
French
wrong.
toast guy.
Nothing wrong with that.
Got a bit of a sweet tooth. You can to make it a little bit, make myself feel better, put some fresh strawberries or blueberries or something on
Pretend
it.
that it's healthy. That's good.
Pretend that it's healthy, not smothered in syrup or something and sugar. But French toast, that'll be my next pick.
Very nice. That's a solid.
Yeah.
Listen, the great thing about breakfast, any of those things you just pick, you can flip those to dinner and make it a great
You
dinner.
can put them all right in front of me right now, and I would enjoy myself.
Exactly. That's absolutely right. With that, I'm going to wrap it up with what I actually had this morning for breakfast: a sausage biscuit. I'm a big fan of the sausage biscuit. If I got a little more specific, I really love the sausage McGriddle at McDonald's, because you get like the pancakey type with the syrup and everything. You get the sweet and the savory kind of mixed together a little bit there. Big fan of that. But for this conversation, I'll stick with just the old sausage biscuit as the anchor of everything that I've got going.
If you get, I also love sausage and biscuits. If you get like sausage on the side, are you a Lynx or Patties guy?
Patties.
Okay,
Patties.
Me too.
The big surprise of this entire draft, I almost took them number one. They ended up not even going in the draft at all. Bacon.
Yeah, I was choosing between bacon and French toast, and French toast sounded more exciting.
Right.
But I mean, everyone loves bacon.
Yeah, exactly. It probably doesn't even deserve to be in the draft.
Yeah.
It's just on its own.
It's in its own tier.
Yeah, completely off by itself. All right, well, with that, we will wrap it up from here at Boone Pickens Stadium, and we will talk to you next week, maybe from Stone Cloud. We'll see when we get back over there, but we're hoping to do it soon. Thank you for watching and listening to the Cowboy Chronicles.